Hi, I'm Lindsey Burrow. Not long ago, my husband, the rugby league player Rob Burrow, and I made a special podcast series, chatting to other sporting stars. Rob had motor neurone disease and he spoke with the help of an eye gaze machine, but he wasn't afraid to ask the guests some really cheeky questions. Sadly, Rob passed away on the 2nd of June 2024, but I know he'd want you to enjoy watching this podcast too. All episodes of Rob Burrow 7 Meets are available on BBC Sounds. Enjoy.
Joining me on this episode is someone who weighed just 2 pounds and 2 ounces when he was born, but has grown up to become an England cricketing giant. He's a multiple Ashes winner and world champion. His career sees him praised as being England's second best leading wicket taker of all time. That's got to sting a bit, mate, to be labelled as second best. I know you and your teammate James Anderson are good buddies. Did you ever consider trying to injure him a bit to steal his record? We'll come back to that bromance in a bit. I can't wait for this. Please welcome my guest, Stuart Broad.
Oh, welcome, Stuart. It's so good to have you on the podcast.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me.
So I have 7 questions for you, Stuart, and my wife Lindsay is here to help me with my eye gaze machine. Are you ready?
Always ready.
He always asks that question. I always think, I guess, actually ready for what's in store. So let's go. So Rob's first question.
We know you're a legendary cricketer, but you're also one half of a power couple. Move over, Posh and Bex, because it's all about you and Mollie King. Are you punching a bit there, Stuart? She's surely well out of your league. You popped the question back in 2021, but the proposal didn't go quite to plan at first, did it? Tell me about it, and will you be in charge of the wedding planning? You could make it cricket themed.
I'm not sure she'd let me make it cricket themed. Yeah, I'm very fortunate to have met Mollie. We now have a gorgeous little daughter called Annabella, and that's been, I'd say, the greatest 18 months of my life welcoming her to the world. So, yeah, the engagement was funny, actually. I'm a bit of a planner. I like to be quite organised and sort of know what's going, and I knew that Mollie's favourite place, or one of her favourite places growing up, was the view over Richmond Hill, where you look over the River Thames. They did a lot of playing as kids with her 2 sisters and dad there, and I decided that I wanted to, in my mind, go up the stairs that are quite steep, go down onto one knee, so when Mollie turned, she'd have a great view of one of her favourite views in London, and then I'd be on one knee and I'd ask her. Because we're quite private, I thought, right, I need no one there. So I picked really early, like 7:45, 8 o'clock on New Year's Day, thinking that everyone's going to have a party. Everyone will be out.
Everyone's going to be out.
No one will be there at that sort of time. We'll get up early. I'll take the dog out for a nice walk, get the sort of fresh air in first thing in the new year. And it was so quiet. It was perfect. Apart from one person was sat on the bench with a cup of coffee and a paper, right exactly where I was going to propose. So I did one lap and I was sort of trying to get his eye contact, like bugger off, like, come on, like, move out of the way. And he didn't look at me. So I said, Mo, let's just do one more lap. I'm feeling really good here. Let's have another little stroll. Unfortunately, when we turned the corner to walk up the stairs, he'd moved. So maybe he did get a bit of a sense. He got a bit of a sense. So yeah, we've been engaged now. Gosh, it was a couple of years. To answer your question, yes, I am punching above my weight, and I do feel very lucky. And she, towards the end of my career, was a great support for me. I think gave me a lot of perspective in life. Sometimes in the sporting world, I'm sure it's the same in a lot of careers, you get in your own little bubble and you think that everything's so important and everyone's judging you and every decision you make on the sporting field is affecting everybody, where it's not. You're just in a little, there's a rugby league bubble, a little cricket bubble. And she took pressure off me in that, because she, by her own admission, wasn't the biggest cricket fan, doesn't know huge amounts about the game, but does like watching it on the TV and the radio and in the stadium when she can. But it was never a pressure when I got home. It was never like, why did you do that? Or you had a bad day type thing. It was just walking through and talking about normal life, which I think stripped a lot of pressure from me. And I actually felt like my performance got better from being with Mol.
So for anyone listening, that is how you do it. That sounds like a good proposal to me.
I mentioned in the introduction that you're England's second leading all-time wicket taker, with your close friend James Anderson holding the title. My sources tell me that Jimmy is notoriously grumpy. Can you confirm or deny this? Also, he was such a big part of your life as a cricketer and also influenced the timing of your retirement. It must be incredibly hard to walk away from the game you love. What do you think you'll both miss the most?
Got about 10 questions in one
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. Is Jimmy as grumpy as he portrays? I think on the field, he's very aware that people think he's grumpy. So even his mark from where he runs from, he puts a little unhappy face, just to make everyone aware. But he's not. He's just, on the pitch, he's just very focused and quite, what's the right word? Almost unemotional in the sense he doesn't give too much away, so he looks a bit deadpan, but he's certainly got better with age with his grumpiness. And off the field, he's not grumpy at all. He's really funny, he's engaging, he's got that I don't want to say sort of in present company you want to say northern thing, but from Burnley you can be like, oh, Burnley are promoted to the Premier League, how you feeling? Yeah, I'm all right. Oh, it's a bit like that. So, but he's very funny and very dry. It's weird how eras in sport work. I'm 37 now, Jimmy's 41, I think. And both of us feel that actually it is the right time for the next generation to start getting opportunities and growing and inspiring another group. I mean, ultimately, for me, you don't know what you've got underneath him unless they get a go. And could he have kept on playing and still be in the England team? Absolutely. He's got incredible talent. Does he need to keep on playing cricket? No, because he's achieved everything he needed to.
And Stuart, we've got to ask this question. Any thoughts on you and Jimmy coaching the national side?
I think both of us, with our experience having played so long, would be keen to give back to England cricket as much as we possibly can. I mean, I'm going to go into the punditry side and do some commentary and talk about the game because, I just want to be a part of the game. But I'd certainly would never rule out, sharing my thoughts and opinions and things I went through in my career, because I had lots of highs, lots of lows, went through technical difficulties and learned a huge amount through playing for England for 17, 18 years. So I think, both of us will be keen to share as much knowledge as possible to keep England as strong as possible. I'd hope that Brendan McCullum as head coach, Ben Stokes as captain would know that both Jimmy and I will always be there for them, and once they move on, be there for the next group coming through.
Growing up, your dad was a famous cricketer in his own right and opened the batting for England. Did you always want to follow in his footsteps? Also, please talk to me about your career highs and lows. You couldn't have asked for a better ending when you retired, taking the last 2 wickets to bowl Australia out, and then on your final ball you hit a six. Can you see this being turned into a movie?
Well, first of all, Dad was a famous cricketer. He must have told you to say that. He was a cricketer. I'm not sure how famous he was. But Dad had a big influence on me, but my mum probably had the biggest influence on me. And I think that came through my mum's mindset. She was very much all about enjoyment for sport. Yes. So it was never about the result. It was never pressurised into, why did you drop that catch? Or why didn't you score that goal? It was always, have you had fun? And actually, on your podcast, I listened to Wayne Rooney say something similar, that he wanted to parent in that way, like, have you had fun?
Yes.
And he mentioned that when he went into professional football, he lost the enjoyment of that a little bit. And I'll never forget any time, whatever sport it was, I used to get in the car with Mum and she'd be like, have you had a good time? Have you enjoyed it? I ultimately tried to keep that mindset the whole time. And for me to finish, I finished at the Oval in London, England versus Australia. I knew I wanted my last game to be in an England shirt, to have Mum, Dad, my sister, my family, my friends in the stadium when I finished taking a wicket, as a fairy tale finish, taking a wicket to beat Australia at the Oval with my final ball in any sort of cricket was incredible. And then I think even more emotional watching it back on TV and seeing the reaction from my family. They were hugging each other and caring. And
because you probably wouldn't have seen that at the time.
I wouldn't have seen it. No, and Mollie and Annabella were there. And, those sort of seeing that footage back was more emotional than actually probably the action itself. I think ultimately I've left the game with absolutely no bitterness, no negativity, no regret. So when I talk to the next generation about the sport, I love it. I have energy. I thrive off it. What it's given me has been incredible.
Absolutely. I think, like you said, you had that fairy tale ending, testament to your career. Were there any low points in your career? Were there any times of adversity, or how did you overcome that if you had those times?
Oh gosh, yes. Yeah.
Points?
Loads. My toughest experience as a young, I think 20, 21-year-old, I got hit for 6 sixes playing for England against India. It's quite a rare thing in cricket for that to happen to a bowler, but it woke me up. It sharpened me up. It was like, okay, well, this is what international cricket is. I need to work harder. I need to be better. I need to have better skills. I need to have better plans and routines. That was a huge low. But again, what my mum had taught me is this sort of 24-hour rule of negativity. So yeah, soak in what you've done wrong, try and appreciate what's happened, why it was bad, have a moan and a groan for a bit, but you've got to get over things pretty quickly and try and turn that into positive change, really. And, I never watched it back. I never watched that experience back because I knew how it felt. I knew I could learn from the feelings. I obviously wouldn't have wanted that experience to happen to me, but I learned incredible amounts from it. And I think it gave me the confidence that I can recover from the worst days.
Absolutely. I love that. I love the 24-hour negativity. I'm definitely going to pinch that.
You've met loads of famous people in your job. Have you ever been starstruck on the pitch or in real life when you met another celebrity or sports star? Obviously, meeting me is a pretty big deal for you, I imagine. But is there anyone else?
Oh, good question. On the pitch, there's a batter called Ricky Ponting, one of the best ever Australian batters, and I was a big fan of his growing up. And then I played against him in 2009, and his mentality around cricket was very much like this warrior mentality. Like, it wasn't warm towards you. You were his enemy. You didn't cross each other in a corridor and be like, "Hi, Stuart." He was in game zone at all times, at lunch, whenever you saw them. That was a great thing to experience because he gave no emotion away to his opposition. He was the ultimate competitor. And I took bits of that and brought that into my game. So I was probably starstruck by him playing against him, but learned a huge amount from doing that. And in real life, the day after I moved away from the playing side, we'd had a bit of a party after winning the game, got to bed in the early hours, which is late for me as a new dad. And about 9 a.m, my phone was ringing. I was awake, like just out the shower or whatever, but my phone was ringing with a South of France number. And I thought, it was weird. I don't know anyone from that neck of the woods at all. So I left it, didn't answer it, because I don't like to answer sort of unknown numbers. 10 minutes later, I brushed my teeth, getting ready to leave the hotel, was calling me again. So I thought, I best sort of answer this, see what's going on. It's like, "Hi, Stuart, it's Elton." And I didn't need to ask,
As in the Elton John.
Yeah, I didn't need to ask Elton who, and that was a bit like, okay, wow, this is an interesting phone call. But he was so nice. He just wanted to call me and say congratulations on my career. And he said to me, "Go and enjoy your family time." He mentioned Annabella, which was really sweet of him. He sort of said we're retiring together because he was moving away from the music scene or doing his Fairytale tour. And it was special because actually Mollie and I's first sort of date night after Annabella was going to watch Elton John at the O2. So that was a really special phone call. So I was probably quite starstruck. One of those phone calls, like I'm talking to him, I'm on the phone, but my mind's sort of going,
is this happening?
This is actually Elton John. I don't really know what's happening to my life here.
Is this like a wind-up?
So that was probably one of those wow moments that happens very rarely.
And had you met him previously? Had you met?
No, I hadn't met him. My dad had back in the 80s because he's followed the cricket for a long time. But he was
Thank goodness you answered.
Honestly,
the phone
he was
call.
so sweet. He was such a nice guy. Not that I have met him, but they always say, don't meet your heroes. But he was the opposite of that. He couldn't have been nicer.
Amazing.
It's no secret that I have motor neurone disease. People might not know, though, that you have a very personal connection to MND with your stepmom, Michelle, who was also diagnosed with it. I know this might be tough to talk about, Stuart, because Michelle is no longer with us, but would you mind telling me about what life was like for you and her after her diagnosis?
Yeah, absolutely. We found out 2009. Dad sort of called me saying, "Can I come and see you?" And he was in the kitchen with a cup of tea. He said, "I just want to tell you, Mish," we called him Mish, has got motor neurone disease. And I'd never heard of it. I didn't have a clue. Mish wanted to raise a few funds, raise some awareness for research in Sheffield. Her sort of message to us was, let's have loads of fun. Let's throw a few parties. Let's have a couple of cricket games, golf games, raise a bit of money and towards research, because currently, unfortunately, we're in that position where there's no cure. But with the better scientists, we will get it to a place where we will find a cure. And Misha unfortunately passed away in 2010, which was devastating for us and our family, and made us really motivated to try and raise awareness of it. And to be honest, I've watched in complete awe of what you guys have done. And with this support and what you guys are doing, there will be a cure found. It's a brutal disease. It's one that you wish didn't exist. But for the positivity that people pull out and pull people together is pretty incredible.
Absolutely, thank you.
I'm a Yorkshire lad through and through, so I'm going to champion who I think is one of England's greatest ever cricketers in Joe Root. What do you think, Stuart? Will he be England's greatest? And whilst we're talking about Yorkshire's influence on the England team, there's Johnny Bairstow and Adil Rashid as well. If we keep this up, we might have to rename England as Team Yorkshire. So tell me, Stuart, who's your favourite player of all time and one to get you in trouble? Who's your worst?
Well, there's a famous saying in the England changing room: strong Yorkshire, strong England. And you can tell that comes from the Yorkshireman in the changing room. So, yeah, I always wind Rooty up, actually. I always say he's a Nottingham boy through and through, because I think he went to school on the border. Could have played for Nottingham or Yorkshire. But I was going to say, when you mentioned Rooty to start, I thought if Johnny Bairstow's listening to this and he doesn't get a mention, he'll be fuming. But both have been incredible. I've played a lot more with Johnny and Rooty than I have with Adil, but all three of them, the influence they've had on English cricket has been incredible, winning the 2019 World Cup, the T20 World Cup and numerous Ashes series. They've been huge influences on our era of England cricket. And, Rooty is probably without doubt the best batter I've played with. And Yorkshire, you'll be pleased to know you've got probably one of the best young players I've ever seen in Harry Brook coming through the young ranks. He's Rooty number 2. Rooty will hate me for saying this, but he's Rooty number 2 with maybe a few more shots. So we'll see how he develops over the next couple of years. But there's no doubt Yorkshire develop and bring an incredible amount of talent. I'd say none more Yorkshire than Jonathan Mark Bairstow. He is through and through Yorkshire and born and bred. And one of my most enjoyable things with Johnny, that before a test match at Headingley, 2 days out, he'd invite us all round for a barbecue. He'd have the whole team, the whole playing staff. He'd be there cooking away, like the proper Yorkshire welcome. In we come, we're here, enjoy the countryside, light the fire, with all the things that you achieve on the field. I think those moments off the field where you're together as a team, you cherish. And Johnny Bairstow is definitely one for being a good host.
So go on then, Stuart. You've avoided the question. Who is the worst player?
Worst player. Okay, so... Oh, it is a hard one. Wayne Rooney actually named Nanny, didn't he? I was like, wow, he's actually gone and named his extra player, yeah. I'll say my favourite ever player first. I mean, Jimmy Anderson is obviously my number one, but I think the influence on my career of Ben Stokes has been incredible. Watching growing up, I loved Darren Gough, a Yorkshireman, but I loved the style, and that's one of the reasons I wore the number 8 shirt for England, was because of Goughy. And Brian Lara was my sort of hero, brought me the most joy as a batter growing up. I'm going to say the worst cricketer, only because he's my most feared to play against, is a guy called Mitchell Johnson. He's an Australian fast bowler who was at his absolute peak in 2014, maybe. If you can picture him, he's probably 6'3", wide, strong, built out of rock. Like, what do you call those tashes that go all the way around? Handlebar. He'd charge in. All he wanted to do was hit you with this ball. He was the quickest bowler I faced. He'd have snot coming out his nose. He'd be spitting everywhere. He's exactly what you'd think of the toughest opponent you'd ever play against. And I'd say that he was my most feared cricketer to play against.
I've also been thinking about your next career move. There's been talk of you done in the sequence and signing up for Strictly. Spill the beans. Would you sign up to do it? Or maybe we need to get you on a singing show. I hear you used to be a big Meatloaf fan.
How on earth have you heard that I was a Meatloaf fan? Yeah, he was the first concert I ever went to, Meatloaf. Gosh, I can't believe I've said that anywhere before. I'm swearing. Strictly, do you know what? The day after I moved away from playing, I went into supermarket just to grab some food because I just got home. And the front page of The Sun was me in sequins with a headband on saying stew to tango. I was like, what? Am I? No. And I just have no natural ability on the dance floor. So Mollie, my partner, did Strictly in 2017 and loved the experience, but it's a hell of a commitment. It's Monday to Saturday night, full blown, almost a full-time job. So she sort of said, you would learn the moves.
Yeah.
But for me, if you said to me now, dance for a minute in front of us now, I'd be like, no, I can't do that. So doing that in front of 10 million people, I think would fill me with complete fear. So I think that would be, never say never to anything, but currently as we stand, unlikely. Singing, I just can't sing either. I'm quite, actually, when I'm saying this, I'm quite glad I was good at cricket, because honestly, I'm not sure what else there is. But I think I leave the singing to Mollie. I mean, I must admit, when I sing nursery rhymes to Annabella, I'll like dive in with "Wheel on the Bus Go Round," and then Mollie will come in with her voice, having been a professional singer. And I'm like, oh, cheers. Yeah, great. Yeah, you carry on. You know what I mean? So, yeah, she certainly runs the roost on the playlists and the singing in our household.
Brilliant. Thank you, Stuart.
Thanks for chatting to me. Enjoy your retirement from cricket and good luck with everything in the future. Please pass on our love to Mollie. Is there anything else you'd like to add or ask me?
Oh, I mean, just a huge thank you, really, from anyone who has had a loved one affected from motor neurone disease or a part of that community. Everyone who is affected by this disease will look to your family as the way to go about things and keep positive. So, yeah, it's thank you so much.
Oh, thanks so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. I've learned so much about cricket.